Okay, so we're live. Okay, so we'll get started in about 1 minute.
How you doing today, Bill?
I'm just great. I got my fancy collared shirt on and ready to talk about engagement as
You do
usual.
have a fancy collared shirt on. I know that was a little jab because I'm not wearing a
Not,
collared shirt. Is that
not at
what's
all.
happening here?
Not at all. Not at all.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's,
I hear what you're saying. I'm not sure I believe it though. I'm looking through the list here and I see some friends and I see some clients and I see some new clients. I love seeing these names in here. This is awesome. Oh my goodness. Hey, Carrie. I see Rachel. Stacy, gosh, Victoria. So many names I recognize. One of the things about these presentations, these broadcasts we do, Bill, is we don't get to see people face to face.
that's true.
We lose that human element. But that's why I'm talking to you like this. I just crave that human element, man. If we were close, I'd give you a big hug is what I would do.
Yeah, even on I mean, even in the virtual setting, right? We can't see everybody when we have too many people on. So it won't be as long as it has been, though, right? And we'll get back
Right?
to it
Yeah.
soon.
I'll tell you what, I think we are, and our members, I say ours, I mean, I don't have members in Prop Fuel, but I say ours in a collective term from the industry. I think our members are just craving, and maybe I'm extrapolating or projecting, but I think the industry is craving, the world is just craving human interaction.
I agree. I
And
agree.
you know what? This talk today, this webinar we're doing, is going to touch on that too. We're going to talk a little bit about that, creating that connection, the stronger connection with people. How is that for a segue, huh?
Yeah, love it. So yeah, speaking of which, yeah, so we got quite a few people in now. If you want to go ahead and jump in the chat, introduce yourselves as usual. That would be great. And we'll go ahead and get started. Dave, you want to put the slides up, or shall I
I
do that?
do. I got it. Yep, here it comes. We got it. Can you see it? Virtual discussion 2021.
I just blocked my screen. Yes, yeah, we're all good here. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everybody. I'm Bill Conforti, Senior VP of Strategy and Solutions with Association Analytics. My pleasure to welcome you again to our virtual discussion series. Our goal is to bring together association professionals with industry leaders like Dave and partners to bring value to the community. So we're going to have one-on-one discussions, expert panels, product overviews, and other sessions that drive our discussions around data and related topics and help us drive performance, for our associations and for our members. We hope to do that in a fun and engaging way and allowing us all to learn from each other in the process. So we meet bi-weekly on Thursdays at 3 p.m. and all the recordings are available to everyone who registers. I see a lot of people are introducing themselves in the chat now. So keep doing that and also use the Q&A function if you have any questions that you want to make sure that we address. And just a quick reminder, change your settings to all panelists and attendees to make sure that that everyone can see what you're presenting.
Hey, Bill, can I just step in to emphasize something? I know I'm the
Yeah,
guest today, but I like to think of myself as a pushy co-presenter.
yeah, definitely.
Please, people, jump in that chat, man. That's what makes this really, really fun and engaging. I'd much prefer you miss a few words of what I'm saying to see what a whole bunch of other people are saying in here. So, like, let's jump in. when I'll tell you, when I'm presenting, it's going to be hard for me to look at the chat. But when Bill's presenting, I'm totally going to ignore him and pay attention to the chat. I mean, listen to the chat and Bill.
Right. Yeah, and I'll do that too. So that's my role is going to be I'll present a few things, but it's mostly going to be moderator. We're going to listen, Dave. I'll jump in with a few questions now and then. All right. So today we're going to take a new look at a familiar topic. It's going to be about member engagement, but in a really unique way. So specifically, how to bring engagement down to a personal level, similar to a conversation that we all used to have, last in 2019 and before when we met in person, but in a way that inspires action on the part of the individuals, as well as informs action on the part of your staff in the association. So today, again, we're joined by Dave Wilt. He's the co-founder and CEO of PropFuel. They're the creators of a really unique and effective engagement platform. So Dave's going to tell us what is conversational engagement, what that is, and how it can take your member experience to the next level. And then even better, PropFuel and Acumen work great together. So we're partners now, and we're offering an integration that's going to improve the value of both of these products. So we're going to show you how to take what Dave's going to teach us and add in elements of Acumen, including predictive analytics and engagement, to provide the insights and actions that you're looking for. So I'll give Dave a chance to add anything to that introduction about yourself or PropFuel.
Yeah, no, I'm good on myself in PropFuel, but what I do want to say is I'm really, really excited about this, for lack of a better word, partnership, the integration, to be more specific, the integration that we have with Acumen. The thing that I think is so cool about this, and I remember sending an email to maybe you and Julie Shulo, your CEO, and Mark Lowry over there, and when after we had this conversation about what the integration meant and what it would do and so on, and I remember sending this thing with, I can't even tell you how many exclamation points were in this email, but it was all about insights and action. And I got so excited about it that I think it was enthusiastic. Let's put it that way. The email was enthusiastic, and it's really just enthusiasm for the combination of this insight and action. And the insight comes from Acumen, where you guys are exposing and studying and dissecting groups of people at all the way down to the individual level, where you can identify which people are most likely to renew and why, right? And you're going to get into this to a certain degree. And then what's cool about this integration is you send them over to PropFuel, and PropFuel then takes these people and says, okay, we've got to take these people through 3 different things. There's 3 things that we need people to do to make them more likely to renew. And so they're going to get entered into PropFuel, where we're going to start driving action through conversational engagement. And so in order to explain, and then, you know what, we take more data out of PropFuel, which is intent and sentiment data, stuff you don't get from behavioral and transactional stuff in your AMS. And we're going to send that back into Acumen to make it more accurate, so that it's just this constant iterative process. And so I get pretty excited about utilizing the technology to improve our processes in business. And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. Sound good? All right. So let me start by jumping into this concept of conversational engagement. I think one of the things I want to acknowledge is that associations aren't doing anything wrong right now. I think it's really, really important to note. Associations know their members really, really well. I mean, nobody knows a group of people as well as associations know their members. They know the things they want, probably down to the percentage of people who want X, Y, and Z. So they know what it is their members want as a group. The challenge is people aren't groups, and people aren't segments, and they're not personas. People are individuals, and with individual needs that are constantly changing too, right? So collectively, I'm going to go back here. Collectively, we know what it is our members want and need, and we're curating all kinds of great content to produce relevant information for our members. And I know some of you out there are saying, yeah, we could do that better, because I know you are, because I hear you say that in our conversations when we meet. But generally speaking, you're doing a great job at creating this continuing education and the certifications that people are looking for, and great content at these conferences and so on. But again, you don't know particularly what Sue wants or Jenny wants or Bill wants at any given time. You cannot know that without actually talking to them. But how can you talk to 30,000 people? Let's imagine this. Imagine you are in a room where, so you're a real human being now, and you're talking to other real human beings, and you're in a room where you're expecting other new members to come in, right? And a new member walks in the room. You've never met this new member before, but they just joined the association, and they walked in the room, the association room where new members go, and you see them. What's the first thing you do? You say, "Hey, I'm Dave," or whatever your name is. You say, "Hey, this is me. What's your name?" "Oh, cool. Nice to meet you." Well, oftentimes you have a choice here. You could just see them, run up to them, say, "Hey, I want to tell you about something. I'm so glad you walked in this room, because we have products and services, and they're going to be awesome. And here's all the cool things you can do, and you're going to love it. It's amazing." And then spin them around, shoot them out the door, and send them to do those products and services. But of course not. You're going to walk up to them, and you're going to say, "I'm Dave. Tell me something. Why did you join? Tell me a little bit about what's important to you." So why is it that when somebody joins on our website, we send them an email with 30 links, or as Reggie would say, Reggie's been in this series before, I've seen him. He says it's a dump truck of information. We're taking this load of information, we're dumping it in people's laps. Why is it that when somebody joins, we just shove a bunch of things in their face? Now, you might drip it out over time, but you're still just sending them a bunch of stuff. In fact, most of that stuff is powered by this guesswork, right? It's powered by behavioral and transactional data that we think we can line up to predict what it is we think people want the most, right? But what we're doing is we're predicting what a persona wants, what a group of people want. And if you disagree, please type this in. I would love the chat, although I'm not going to pay attention to that right now, but I'm going to see it in a few minutes. And I would like to see the dialogue that you guys are having with each other. If anything I'm saying, if you want to challenge it. And Bill, would you do me a favor? Would you monitor the chat? And if you see if somebody, and I don't need names, I don't care, but if you see something that's a relevant challenge to what I'm saying, please bring it up. I really, really want to have this dialogue with people. It'd be so much better than broadcasting this out. I want the conversation myself. So a lot of our broadcasts are powered by guesswork. They're one way, right? We're sending stuff at people. And then they open it and they click on it. And then it stops. It's clicks and opens. That's what we're hoping for. That's the level of engagement that we're hoping for. So the alternative and what we're trying to do is begin a conversation. What we're trying to do is start that conversation. Again, I'm going to take you back to that room. Somebody walks in the room. "Hey, I'm Dave. I see you joined, in this case, Ask. Tell me, why'd you join Ask?" This is American Association of Service Coordinators. Why'd you join? Now, they're going to click on something. That's not really what I would call the voice of the member, and we're going to talk about voice of the member in a little bit too. But that's not as much as what I would refer to as voice of the member, but it starts the conversation. We're reducing friction by letting people just click on something, and then eventually they may or may not actually tell us something with open text. But what we're doing is we're starting an exchange, and based on what they click on, then we can have a better exchange. We'll send them something that's relevant to them. Now, again, you can't do this with 30,000 people, meaning you can't have this conversation. You can't pick up the phone the old style way, and you can't welcome 30,000 people into a room. You can't be there waiting for people when they join. And that's why we need a system technology to do that. But the problem is with most technologies is they're technology, right? It's not a human. And the idea here is we're trying to start a conversation so that we can cover most of it with this exchange and this technology, but there's also alerts that are going back to humans, so humans can interact with people so that they know who to talk to, when to talk to them, and what to talk to them about. So the idea is that we're doing some of this with technology, but we're also figuring out a better way for humans to be a little more precise about who they actually offer human interaction to. But the cool thing about conversation, whether it's in, sorry, Bill, did something come up? Did we get
Yeah,
any challenges?
yeah, no challenges yet, but I did want to ask a question kind of on
Yeah.
behalf of the audience. So I think some people are probably saying, hey, Dave, this sounds awesome. Sounds cool.
Yes, it does. I know. Great question. It is awesome.
Isn't this similar to what my marketing automation provider told me when we signed up for that tool, which we paid a lot of money for, and we're not, most of us are not maybe using that as effectively as we could. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure, of course. Yeah, marketing automation is a great tool, a collection of tools, I should say. And by no means am I suggesting you get rid of your marketing automation system. Sorry, I don't think you can do that. There's still a good time for broadcasts. There's still a good time for drip broadcasts. I'm gonna get on my little soapbox for a second. It's not a soapbox as much as it is I'm behind a podium for a second here. There's the evolution of what I consider to be marketing communications. Earlier, it was just email blasts, right? MailChimp, Adestra. And some of these tools have drip capability and so on, but it's email blasts is the first thing. And then things evolved into like Pardot, which is now Salesforce Marketing Cloud, and I think Informs and Real Magnet are association specific marketing, that a little closer to marketing automation but there's a whole bunch of tools that fall in that category. These are systems that are designed to create really colorful processes around communicating with people based on behavioral and transactional triggers. Right. So behavior, somebody does something, or there's a cha-ching, a receipt that triggers something, and that might trigger an email. And that's marketing automation, this series of drips that go out. Now, you can kind of mimic the idea of asking a question, and then based on the question, have certain limited number of actions come through. It's to create campaigns that have the level of exchange that actually create a conversation is far more challenging with a marketing automation system. A marketing automation system is designed to send stuff out. That's what it's designed for. A marketing automation system is designed to send stuff out intelligently. Let's be intelligent and intentional about behavioral and transactional data so that triggers the right stuff to go out at the right time.
Yep.
What we're focused on is kind of a subset. I consider PropFuel to be a subcategory of marketing automation. Again, it's complementary to your marketing automation system. What PropFuel is going to do is going to initiate a conversation, continue the conversation, and part of that might be adding people after they've answered a question a certain way or done things a certain way. We might write data back to the AMS. We might add people to a marketing automation campaign based on how they answered something. We might add people to another drip campaign in PropFuel to continue asking questions. We might tag them in a profile somewhere. We might write data back to the profile. So there's all kinds of actions that might take place, including the marketing automation piece. So PropFuel is about starting a conversation and continuing a conversation back and forth with people as they go through this process of answering questions over time.
Awesome. Thank you.
That was a lot of words to answer your question. Usually I would argue that the more words you use, the less you know what you're saying. So forgive me for that. But yeah, marketing automation is, let me put it succinctly. Marketing automation is about sending stuff out. PropFuel is about receiving stuff. It's the direction in which information is flowing. PropFuel is about receiving the voice of the member, about receiving and listening to members, capturing needs. And in fact, maybe this slide will explain it a little bit better. We call this conversational engagement gap, conversational engagement opportunity. Generally speaking, clicks and opens are what we're seeing here on the bottom, where We can identify what people have clicked on, and what they've opened, and maybe where they've gone, and we can send them certain places. That's traditional broadcast emails. What we're doing when we start a conversation and we actually continue this conversation, have an exchange back and forth, that we're listening, we're paying attention to intent, we're understanding and acting on needs, and this all comes from asking questions. And so we're resolving problems on the spot, but also we're resolving problems by injecting humans when necessary. We're building trust, because now people, when you actually interact with them, they believe that you're actually paying attention to what they're saying. ASAE does this. I mentioned Reggie, and it's amazing. Not Siri. My Siri just popped up on my screen. Reggie and Amy Hempel over at ASAE use this regularly. And Amy has told me that she's received messages of people saying, I love that you're actually asking me these questions and listening to me. You send out surveys, and that's really designed to dissect your membership as a whole. Surveys help you understand your membership as a whole, and it's really a snapshot in time. What we're doing is we're trying to listen and recognize intent and understand and act on needs immediately, answering and resolve problems, create a connection, build trust, offer relevant guidance. Those are the elements of a conversation that create a stronger connection with your members. All right, and we do that by asking, capturing, and acting on member needs. Now that's how it was written here. Sorry, that should say member needs, not member needs. You with me, Bill? Am I just making a joke to myself here?
I'm with you.
I need that little button that has crowd laughter when I attempt a joke like that. But anyway, so this process that we call ask, capture, act, really easy to capture. Easy to understand. Ask a question, capture input, capture context, take action on it. Think about what I said before when we started this conversation about a new member walking in the door. What's the first thing you do? Hey, why'd you join? Ask a question. You listen to them. Well, I joined because I kind of interested in certifications. I wanted to get one of the certifications you offer. Act. Do you know we have 5 certifications that we're offering? And in fact, we have one of the most popular one is this one. What are you interested in? Ask another question. So this is a conversation that's happening utilizing both technology and people. Ask, capture, act. So let me put this into, let me paint a picture. We were working with a client in member acquisition. I don't know if any of you want to grow your membership, but these guys did. And they had a bunch of guest accounts. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate the laughter there. Thank you very much. So they have a bunch of guest accounts, and they want to convert them to paying members. And the way they did that is they sent out a series of drip emails using their marketing automation system, really nice emails. And in fact, they would send these out when they got a new guest. They would trigger this first email to go out in the drip campaign with outlining a benefit and then a call to action. And then a week later, they send out another benefit and another call to action, and so on. And they would keep doing this until they exhausted their efforts and people either did or didn't sign on. So we did an A/B test with them. We took half of their list just to see what the results were. And ours looked a little different. Ours was like this. We sent out a question. Ask, capture, act. We sent out a question. In this case, we said, why did you sign up for this guest account? Kind of like, why did you join the association? In this case, why did you set up your guest account? And based on why people said they set up the guest account, we had a different interaction with each one of them. Kind of like a choose your own adventure book. And in fact, what's really, really interesting, and I used that certification example earlier, this organization thought the reason why people were signing up for a guest account was to download articles. What it turned out was the vast majority of people were signing up for a guest account because they wanted to learn more about the certifications. Now, that was illogical to the association. It didn't make sense to them because they said you can do that without actually signing up for a guest account. But who cares? That didn't matter. People didn't know that. People were signing up for a guest account and they were interested in the certification. So we talked to them about the certifications and answered their questions and had an exchange. Again, some technology, a little bit of human interaction. The next question went out. Eventually, we got to, are you interested in joining? Now, the people that said yes were then tagged and put into a nurturing campaign with another series of questions saying, hey, you said you were going to sign up. Did you sign up yet? As opposed to the people that said no, who were asked, well, why not? And then based on why not, we would have a bunch of interaction with them. All right. So that's what that looked like. The result was awesome. The result was basically 2x success. So the conversational engagement approach got had twice as much success as the traditional email marketing. And that's one of the things I love about this. It just absolutely works. It just, this idea of talking to people as if they're human, it works, Bill. It's like talking to people as if we're sitting in a room talking to them. It works. Talking at them works, but it's less effective. And so now if you take this thing that we did with the member acquisition and you apply it to other elements of what's going on in your organization, whether it's new member onboarding or understanding member needs or event registration and engaging people in events, and what about actually acquiring people that attend your event but they're not members and converting them to members? What about the renewal drive and increasing renewal rates and the lapsed member win back or even the dormant member win back? So you take this concept and you apply it to conversational engagement, and it's just a major, major win. You asked earlier about marketing automation versus this concept, prop fuel in particular, but this idea of conversational engagement. Marketing automation, again, you can mimic some of this behavior, but it takes a fair amount of effort, and to do it across the board, to do it across all of these different use cases, it's an incredible waste of time. And it's far less effective than having a system for doing that. And I'd like to say, no, I wouldn't. I actually really like saying there is no other system that does this. It's shocking to me that there's no system in the market aside from Prop Fuel that is focused on creating conversations with individuals. And some of the cool data now that we're sending back into Acumen, Bill, is and this is aside from behavioral and transactional data that you're already getting from the AMS. So you guys get this amazing data from all different systems, including the community. So you're getting community data, you're getting data from transactions and the behavior, like the website, tons of data, right? What you're not getting is, and I'm going to focus on a couple here. What you're not getting is sentiment data, open text data. You're not getting satisfaction feedback. What about intent data? Needs data, profile data. Intent data is focused on, like, are you planning to renew? Don't you think that's kind of an important question rather than trying to guess whether or not somebody's in? Why don't we ask them, are you planning to renew your membership? Or what about member acquisition? How often do we just ask people, are you interested in joining? Yes or no? Like, answer this question for me. Are you interested in joining? And then if they say no, why not? Why wouldn't you be interested in joining? I wish I had this in college. I can't tell you how many times I could have used this when I was asking Kelly Savage out on a date. Kelly, would you like to go on a date with me?
Why
Yes
not?
or no? No? Why not? Oh man, I got stories for you on that one. A number of times I asked Kelly Savage out. Volunteer data. Are you interested in becoming? This isn't the last thing I'm going to say. I'll end it here, and then I'm going to pass it on to you, Bill, unless there's specific questions for me here. ASAE had this one question. They have somebody focused on volunteering over at ASAE, and it's Wanda Little Coffee. Actually, that's her name, Wanda Little Coffee. And one of the questions that they sent out their Prop Fuel is, because they know that volunteers are more likely to renew than people that don't volunteer. So they send out this question, hey, are you interested in volunteering and getting more involved with ASAE? If people said yes, we'd send them to Wanda Little Coffee. She got so many alerts. By the way, this is the human interaction of that conversation. She got so many alerts, 750 alerts in like a 3-week period. She got so many alerts that we had to come up with a more automated system to process people. And then so we sent them to a form, and then that form took people to Want a Little Coffee if they had certain text in that form. But anyway, just awesome results. So with that, Bill, I'm going to turn it on to you unless there's questions specifically for me.
Yeah. So I think the audience is a little sleepy with the questions today, but I do have another one for you, Dave. And we've talked about this before, but just
Wait, are you implying, Bill, that the audience is bored with my presentation? That's what I'm hearing.
No, I don't think I was doing that. I don't think I was
Okay.
Come on, wake up, everybody.
I'm a little aggressive right now. A little too much caffeine.
So here's the question.
Yeah.
So we talked about differentiating, so there's this overlap with marketing automation. And the other thing that we've talked about before is, essentially, like Acumen spends a lot of time and effort to derive and to infer and calculate, different kinds of things that we can know about the members, about their, interests, implicit interests a lot of the time. And so, what you're doing is sort of, shortcutting a lot of that and being explicit about it, right? Just asking them, right? Do you intend, yes or no? Are you interested in this, yes or no? And so my question is, much of the interaction that a lot of member organizations have with their members, where they're asking questions, is through surveys. And so I just wanted to tee that up for a second and have you also contrast at a high level, how this is different from a survey, and especially like, a small survey. It's kind of obvious how it's different from the big annual survey, but just from surveys in general.
Yeah, so I mean, it's the same question as how is it different from marketing automation. The reality is there's some similarities, but there's more differences. With marketing automation, it's about sending, whereas we're about receiving. We're about listening. We're about capturing context. Now, from a survey perspective, you could say the same thing. Surveys are about listening, but surveys are about listening to wholes, like a whole group of people. And not only that, but surveys are also more or less a dead end. Right? A survey comes in and now you have data. But the biggest problem with surveys is the data comes back, and usually one person looks at that and they're like, yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Right? So what you're not doing is you're not going down to the level of the individual, and because you can't send a survey out to 30,000 people and then take action on it at the individual level. Surveys are meant to aggregate input, right? They're meant to aggregate information so that then we can identify what does the group need as a whole. But that's not what our intent is. Our intent is to actually start a conversation and listen, receive input from individuals at scale.
Yeah.
We want to be able to listen to and engage individuals at scale. So we can do that with 30,000 people.
Yeah.
Without having to just harvest data, dissect them, without broadcasting to them all the time. Our job is to listen better. We want to help associations listen and act on what it is their members are doing.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm sure no one on the call has the experience of collecting data and then not acting on it.
But don't get me wrong. Listen, surveys are valuable. Marketing automation is valuable, and yes, there's a little overlap. Like what is that called? What are those charts called where it's two circles, one's overlapping the other? There is some of that oval in the middle that's overlap. There's no doubt about it.
The Venn diagram.
Yeah, you must know. You're a data guy. What are they called?
The Venn diagram.
Thank you, a Venn diagram. So yeah, there's some overlap, but the question is, what is marketing automation good at? What are surveys good at? And what is this thing we're calling conversational engagement, PropFuel? What is that good at? What conversational engagement is good at is asking questions, capturing context, and acting on it. Ask, capture, act.
Okay. Yeah. So let me sort of I'm going to talk about. We're going to continue talking about PropFuel, of course, but how does it work with Acumen, right? And how we've talked about Acumen a lot, week after week, talking about how it works with different products in a different context. And so over that time, we've talked about some of the things that Acumen is good at, right? And what are some of those things, right? So first of all, aggregate, right? We want to aggregate information across all of your key source systems, right? We help you organize. So organizing your trusted data into modules with configurable permissions so that everybody in the organization has access to the data that they need. Summarize, right? So we start at the lowest level of granularity with your individual records, with your transaction records, and then we summarize that up to all the levels that you care about in order to do your analyses. And segment, right? So we talked about segment, and sort of Dave's presentation started with the idea that we do a pretty good job of knowing what members want in groups, right? So we identify those groups based on characteristics and behaviors, so that we can personalize to a degree. But if we want to individualize, then we need something like Propula. So I think that's kind of an important point here. We're good at analyzing, right? So we build in the most common analyses into the product, trending over time. We'll look at predictive analyses, network and overlap types of things, sentiment, natural language processing, all those kinds of things are built in. Visualizing, of course, right? I mean, all the pretty charts and graphs some of you have seen before. All of that is there to communicate, right? So if you want to, get budget, for something, you want to going to make a business case, you want to advocate for a new product or service or sunsetting a product or service, you have to be able to communicate, right? And so we try to build in things that are going to help you communicate the story in your data with others, the insight, right? Without that, the value of all that is limited. Predicting, so we have built-in calculations, built-in models for predicting the things that you need to predict around retention and attendance and purchasing, things like that. And then recommending is, kind of like a roundabout way to derive, what members are most likely to want to buy or want to read or want to consume next, right? And so you do that, but then imagine that you're able to do that, but then augment that by starting a conversation and actually asking some of those questions as well, right? So you don't just rely on, some AI formula to determine what Dave wants to read next or what he wants to learn about next. Sometimes you can just ask, right? Often you can ask, right? Because these are the kind of tools that allow that to be automated and done at scale.
Or perhaps you do both, right, Bill?
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
Isn't that the idea? Is that we want to utilize the data we have, and that's what I love about Acumen. Is now you guys can do both, man. You take. Okay, this is your time, isn't it?
That's okay.
I'm gonna
Go for it.
throttle back here, but I love this idea of taking what I would consider to be almost like the hard data, and then the intent and sentiment data, the human element of it, and putting them together. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So what we're trying to depict here is, Acumen, collects the data, feeds the data to Propula in some cases. So we're developing lists. We're developing the starting point for some of these campaigns. Propula executes the campaigns, and they sort of get, finer as they go along, as you collect more information. Acumen also consumes those results in numerous ways to give a robust picture of engagement, and then also those clear and measurable actions that result from the Propula campaigns, which we can also measure, right? So all of those things sort of feed into each other and create this kind of loop, which allows you to get more robust with your engagement measurement and then your member experience overall. So talking about types of data. This slide has been around. You've seen this before, but just to reiterate, right, the kinds that we're normally talking about when we talk about engagement are mostly the behavioral, right? We have our demographic data in our profiles, right? But we don't want just a list of all members. We want a very specific list, and we want that based on where they live, maybe what they're interested in, their job role and function, and things like that. We add to that their behaviors, and those are the things that we typically are tracking in engagement scoring. And that's kind of talk a little bit about that, but that's, of course, a whole other topic. But we don't just want this sorted list of members. We want to know how they behave, right? Do they attend events? Do they come to our website? Do they buy stuff, etc.? And in most cases, these are the primary drivers of engagement. And even getting to the point where you are doing this is, I mean, there's, if you're doing that, then you're in the minority right now, right? I mean, all of our conversations for for Acumen prospects, they almost all of them involve engagement as one of the primary goals. And you want to add, you definitely need to add those, right, to the, it's not just about demographics, because the behaviors are things that that change really fast, right? I mean, demographics sort of stay the same, behaviors change, and that's from the things that you can infer and derive from your data. I mean, if you're in this conversational mode that we've been talking about, they could change even faster. And then, so the last one, contextual, is just what it sounds like. It's like kind of like what's happening around us in the world. I never thought a lot about contextual data until this year, right? I mean, with COVID, imagine that you looked at your results from 2020 without the benefit of knowing about COVID, and obviously a lot of things wouldn't make sense, right? So there's real need to look at contextual data at times as well. But I want to talk about the psychographic, right? So that's like kind of a general term for some of the types of data that we've been talking about that are difficult to derive but easy to ask, right? I mean, just like we've been talking about, ask the members, what is it they value about the membership? Why did they join, right? What are their interests, right? You can get things like their attitudes or their sentiment. And in this case, when we say sentiment, not really talking about something that you derive from a piece of text. We're talking about, like, are they a promoter? Like, would they recommend, are they satisfied, right? A satisfaction score, a promoter score, something like that. All right. So how that pertains to engagement. So the green ones are kind of like the traditional things that we do inside of Acumen. So you monitor all of these different types of transactions. So, do members join? Do they renew? Do they donate? Attend meetings? Do they read? Do they learn, right? Do they consume your educational content? Do they buy things? And do they open those emails, right? So we talked about your marketing automation system is broadcasting a bunch of things. Are they opening those? Are they interested in your message? But now imagine being able to add to that the additional data and the additional context that you get from those conversations, right? And the sentiment and the intent, right? So we can, by formula and by mathematics, tell you which members are most likely to renew based on their historical activities. But imagine being able to add to that the context of, well, we asked them, do they intend to renew? And yes, they do, right? So that just adds a level of robustness, a level of context, a level of certainty to some of these questions that you have. That's really powerful. Okay. It also helps to augment scoring. So when we score engagement, again, it's primarily looking at that behavioral data, and we look at counts, we look at amounts, and we look at rates typically, right? So for counts, we're counting how many times you've done something, like how many events did you attend, how many webinars did you attend, how many books did you download or buy. With amounts, it's usually dollars, it could be other things. And then rates is, again, those broadcast emails, what was your open rate, what was your click rate, et cetera. And so imagine now adding to that, again, sentiment, right, expressed as a member satisfaction score, NPS score. That's really another type of amount, right? So it's not always about the dollars. That's something that can easily be brought in and added to this this picture of your member engagement. And then if we talk about intent, that's going to be a really great addition, not only to our engagement, but also to our predictive modeling, right? And so I want to bring all that back together and think about this comprehensive view of engagement. So the broader goal is to get this comprehensive picture in score, for engagement across your membership. You want individual engagement, where we look at the things individuals are doing with your association over time. If you're a trade, or if you have relationships with the organizations, we want to do a similar thing with our organizations. And improving engagement is not an academic exercise. It's not something that we do just because, right? We want, the board said we want to improve engagement. We want to have higher scores. And that's not really the end game, right? We want to drive results. We want more spending. We want better experience. We want things that are tangible, right? So we go from something like this, again, this aggregate view of engagement across all of our customer base and our member base. And then if we look at these deciles here, these are deciles based on engagement score. And so if we go back and we look at the aggregate, right, we have an average score of about 35, say just under 10 activities, median of 27, and they're spending on average $700 per year, right? And so in this case, this is decile 4. So we picked out the one that's kind of most like the aggregate, right? So in this decile, they have an average score of just under 35, about the same number of activities, a little bit less spending, but we're pretty close. And you can kind of see that over time, the engagement is kind of improving. It's dipped a little bit recently, but you can also look at what are the activities that they're engaged in. Okay, and now if I look at, this is the 7th decile, right? So we've managed to bump up engagement a little bit. We're getting a little bit more active. So now we have, 14 activities, a 65 engagement score, and look at the average spend. It's, it's 50, 60% more than in the 4th decile. And what's more than that is that they're more active, right? They're, spending twice more. They're more likely to donate. And they're more likely to engage with education, right? So I don't know if you can see what the colors stand for here, but in this case, we know that the most engaged members are doing specifically more with education, right? And that may not be the case with your association. It could be something else, but the point is that there are correlations, between certain types of activities and higher engagement scores, and there are correlations between certain types of activities and more spending, higher retention, and so forth. And you can know what they are, right? And when you know what they are, you can encourage people to do more of those things, right? And now we know that there are some very straightforward ways that we can engage with members on an individual level, and we can encourage them to do certain things, right? And so the question is, what things do we encourage them to do? And I mean, obviously, things like renew membership, but there might be other things that we know are leading indicators of doing the other things that we want that increase the lifetime value of a member, and so forth. So let's talk as we sort of wrap things up here. Let's talk about leveraging.
Bill, could I interrupt for a second?
Yeah, sure.
I really, really like this point you're making, because it brings me right into a new member engagement campaign. This idea of how do we engage new members and what are we engaging them with? The conversation I have with a lot of our clients is like, yeah, we have a new member drip campaign. We're sending stuff to them. But if we were to ask them questions, what do we ask them? Well, you've got the answers right here. The answers are, these are the things for your association that we're seeing the members that are most likely to renew, they're doing X, Y, and Z. So we're going to ask them questions that lead them down the path of taking action on those things. We're going to ask them questions to start a conversation around education. Let's start a conversation around volunteering. Let's start a conversation around meeting other members. So these are things that you're exposing as the important things to drive renewals, and then you bring them into a campaign to actually initiate those things. So that's what I love about that. Thanks for letting me comment there. There's a question before you go on to the next slide from Barbara. She's wondering what's included in the current average engagement score.
Yes, that's a great question, and the short answer is whatever you would like to be included. Okay, that's but in this case, I'll go back a couple of slides, and show you this model, which has education, right? It has on-site and it has virtual education, it has purchases, it has donations, and it has community participation. So that's the particular model that we happen to be looking at. But when you think of engagement, and there's, again, this is a topic that we could spend a whole hour on, but in our model and in our approach, it really boils down to really just choosing the activities that you care about and choosing how important they are. And so in our case, yeah, go ahead,
Bill,
Dave.
sorry, and I'm gonna add a few things that come from the intent and sentiment data. What about questions like Net Promoter Score or some other customer satisfaction question? Are you satisfied? Like,
Yep.
are they a promoter, detractor? Are they passive? That's a huge element of, are they likely to renew? Or are they engaged? Have they been answering questions that we're asking them? Are they interacting with us? Are are they planning to renew their membership? These are elements, the questions that you can ask them. Do you feel engaged? Like, I mean, we're trying to look at all these numbers and statistics to figure out, are they engaged? Or we could just ask them.
Yep.
And I hear that a lot in the industry. Well, yeah, we should ask our members questions. Now you can actually ask individual members questions with actions. So anyway, I think those are things that is so exciting about this integration, is because now that data can be included in engagement score.
Great. Okay, so predictive models. So this is not a session on predictive, so we're not going to go into the math behind how all this is derived, but I do want to make a point that one of the things that we spend a lot of time on in our product development is to productize predictive models that allow you to understand not only how many members are likely to be retained in the upcoming renewal cycle, but who they're going to be. Okay, and we're sorting them by propensity, right, or their likelihood to be retained. So we have some down here with very low likelihood to retain, and some up here that are very high. And mainly the message on this particular slide is that you can drill through to any of these deciles. They're sorted by propensity, and in terms of messaging and the conversation that you would have, or that marketing message that you would send out, right? If you knew that Dave was down here in the 5% bucket, right, and I was up here in the 95% bucket, would you send us the same message, right? Would you want to start the conversation the same way with Dave as you would with me? And the answer is no, you wouldn't, right? I mean, so you might be asking Dave, what are we doing wrong? What are we missing? How can we improve? And you might be sending me something different, like what additional products and services I'm interested in, or am I willing to volunteer, or something like that. All right. So then what you do is you choose one of these deciles, and very often you'll focus a lot of time and attention on the ones in the middle, right? Because those are kind of on the fence in some ways. They're changeable. They might be undecided about whether they're going to renew or not. And starting an individual conversation with them can really have a massive impact and move them up the chain into and say the 8th decile, right? If I can get you up here, now you're 75% likely instead of 50% likely to renew. And so, but it gets a little bit more nuanced than that, in the sense that you see we have some drill throughs here. So I can drill through to the details, the list of people. I can look at the distribution of the predictors and the predictor values. And what that means is, what are the specific things that make me someone that's in the 8th decile versus someone that's in the 1st, right? So getting back to where we first started, what are the 3 things that members who renew, what do they do most often, and what do we know about them, right? So this is a look at the individual breakdown, right? So we go into that 8th decile, that 9th decile, whichever one we're interested in, and we look at the demographics, right? We look at, well, how old are they? Where do they work? Things like that. But probably more importantly, we look at the predictors, right? And suppose that we knew that there are three things that have the highest correlation with renewal based on our data, right? They're volunteering, their community participation, and the spending in their education product, right? So not necessarily those three things, but all of them are very common, for high correlation with renewal. Now, what if we can then begin our conversations that are meant specifically to drive action in these areas, right? They're driving people to get involved in volunteering. They're encouraging individuals to join the community, right? To check out our educational opportunities that are in their area of interest, right? And we know what that is because we asked them, right? And so if we can not just rely on the implicit things in the math to figure that out, but complement that and augment that, with asking them directly, then our success rate in moving people up, up the decile rank, so to speak, from low levels of likelihood to high levels, and everything else that means in terms of spending and engagement and so forth. All right. Anything to add, Dave?
Collectively or on this slide?
No, just collectively. We're getting ready.
Yeah, man. Of course.
Yeah, floor is yours.
I always got something to add, and the thing I'd like to add right now is that I think the theme, what I want to impress on people listening to this, is that generally speaking, we've been trained in marketing and communications across the board. Whether you're in industry or in an association, we've been trained to talk at people, to send stuff to people. Where we need to retrain ourselves to treat people like people and actually engage them in conversation, listen to them a little bit. And it's that listening and sparking conversation that's going to drive a much stronger connection with your members. And that's what I want to emphasize. The Voice of the Member ebook, I put a link in here. There's also, I think Association Analytics just put the link in there for theirs as well. If you scroll up, you'll see the link for the Voice of the Member ebook, or just point your camera at these QR codes, right?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So in terms of in terms of key takeaways, one thing that I want to say, and then I'll let Dave kind of wrap things up, is, we talked last webinar, if anyone joined us then, we talked about the sort of new association tech stack. And it's kind of like this best of breed, kind of approach where you have maybe a lot of different, more technologies than you are used to having, but they're all sort of integrated. And this is a really good example of, we talked about a few different types of technologies that overlap a little bit, but in reality, you're gonna do great if you if you invest in multiple things here. So I think Acumen is great by itself. I mean, there's some people on here that are using PropFuel that haven't looked at Acumen yet, but I think together both of these tools make the other more powerful, right? I mean, in talking about this this sort of cycle, where the insights and the actions kind of feed on each other and create this really robust engagement picture that only gets better over time. All right. Anything else, Dave?
No, man, you said it all. I really appreciate the invitation to be here, and thanks to all the attendees. I see a lot of our mutual clients here, so I'm looking forward to rolling out this integration and starting to poke around and play around with it.
All right. Yeah, I'd love to talk to anyone that's interested. So we have a bit of a break for the next Thursday. So we're coming back on April 8th. We're going to look at virtual communities and how that's all evolved here in 2021. We'll be joined by Higher Logic for that. And just want to thank all the attendees for their time and attention and the questions, and special thanks to Dave for joining us. I learned a lot, appreciate it, and hope to talk to some of the some of the attendees about how we can help with engagement. So thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.